All right, the project for today and maybe a few more days after this is to attempt to fix this chip conveyor. Now I've already got into it and I've taken it apart, and I'm going to show you what the problem was with it. I got shavings all over myself from working on this conveyor. But let me show you what's happening with the Mazak as well, because we had a problem with something on the Mazak, and that's the reason I'm working on the conveyor right now, because I thought there'd be a good time to start working on this because of what's happening with the machine itself. So let me turn you around here. We can see what the problem is here. Oh, I'm using this Osmo, whatever this thing is called right now, this DJI Osmo, because I couldn't find my other cameras for some reason. I put them somewhere and I got to locate them. So this is kind of weird. This thing has this stabilizer on it, and I'm not totally used to it. But anyway, this, you'll notice the spindle, the milling spindle is off the machine right here because there was a coolant or something leaked through the spindle, coolant gland or something. I don't know. It got in the spindle and it kind of messed things up. So they've taken that spindle, the milling spindle, off, and they're either going to get a replacement or rebuild it or something. They haven't decided yet. So while that's happening, I thought it'd be a good time to get into this coolant and chip conveyor situation. Now, we drained most of the coolant in this tank, and it took the conveyor out, and you can kind of see here, tank's not cleaned out yet, but all the shavings that were built up in here and the nasty coolant, although the coolant doesn't smell, but it's just kind of got a lot of whey oil and stuff in it. And need to probably change the filters in the high pressure pump over there, do all this kind of maintenance work while they're working on that spindle for right now. But anyway, so I pulled the conveyor out, and it was a real hassle to get the chain out of this conveyor. And one of the reasons why, well, the main reason why, was because this trackway here is so worn out, and it actually poked holes through this sheet metal. You can't see it so much on this side, but you can see it here where I've cut with the abrasive disc, and you can see where the hole was. See how this is all deformed and everything? And what was happening was one of the links came off on the side of the chain, off of its pin, came loose, and it was jamming in this area here. You can see how it's kind of worn out the trackway so bad that there's no trackway actually, and it's put a big hole in it right here. And apparently this was made out of, like, it's a sheet metal stamping or something, and there's two stampings sandwiched together to form the trackway. And it anyway, it's all worn out, and it even is missing here. It's completely missing, and it hung up on this brace that should be straight, and there's excessive wear and everything here. And so I've got a plan I'm going to try to do. Let me show you the belt here. Oh, first let's look at this here. Also this, I don't know if you can see this trackway here is completely gone here, and it's worn. It's almost gone up here too. It's just worn all the way through. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's like I'm sticking my finger through the trackway. It's gone. And this one's not too bad on the bottom here. I think I'll leave that be. It's not that bad. But the one on this side is almost worn out too. So I'll have to replace these two pieces and somehow rebuild this down to here somewhere on both sides. And the reason this thing was messing up, if I can show you here, let's see this link. It's totally detached from its pin, and that was jamming in the worn out areas in the trackway. So have to take this chain out and maybe try to clean it up some here and rebuild that section up in there of the tracks. Then we're going to, the plan here, and I'll show you in the CAD on the computer, but I'm going to cut these things off. There's a weld. I don't know if you can see that right there. You can see it. And I'm going to cut these two ends off of here, and I'm going to remachine that whole piece out of solid steel for both sides and weld it back on here. Then put the sheet metal back on. Here's a sheet metal piece that came off of there, right there. Here. It goes around the front of it. I'll re-weld that together. Rebuild this track on both sides back to about here. And I think doing all that, fix the link on the chain, and I think that's gonna solve this conveyor's problem. All right, here we are in the CAD software on the my computer, and I've modeled out, you can see the right and left side of this ends for the chip conveyor. I've changed this a little bit in this area, hoping that it might be a little bit smoother transition around. The actual conveyor, I didn't mention this when I was showing you the conveyor part, the worn out tracks, but it doesn't actually pull the conveyor through here like you might think. It actually pushes it, and these rollers hit on the inside of this track here. That's the reason it's worn out so bad. They actually hit there. They don't get pulled over this part of it at all, really. The only reason I've shaped it like this is I'm hoping that because it's pushing it, it won't kink it so much going through here. Maybe that's causing the excessive wear in the track too. Also, my pieces will be solid steel, so they really can't wear out and break through the sheet metal like the previous ones did. So we're going to machine these two pieces out of some chunks of steel I found here at the shop. And that's pretty much it for the CAD. I mean, I took dimensions off the conveyor and modeled these as best I could. And now we're going to go over to the vertical mill, probably that Toyota mill that I showed in my previous video on indicating the center of the part. right, we're ready to start cutting these off right here. We've got to cut this whole thing off to replace it with the machine part here, of course. So in order to get this the same length, because I don't want to change the length of this conveyor because that might mess up the length of the chain and everything, there's a, let me move this. There's a cross piece back here on the conveyor, and what I've done is I've taken my tape measure. Let me move this back out here a little bit. I've taken my tape measure and measured back to that like this on both sides and noted the dimension. It's a little bit different. It's about a 1/16 of an inch different. Might be that thing's not too straight back there, but anyway, it gives me a reference point. So when I cut these off, I'm going to cut them off long, and then I'm going to grind it back until I can hold the, clamp the part up here like this, my new end piece, and measure and get the same length so that I'm not changing the length of the conveyor to any degree, because the chain of course is a fixed length, back to there, and I don't want to have a problem with not having enough adjustment or something in the chain, the tension of it or something. Also, the other, this is Monday, by the way, and on Friday I fixed this back of this. I didn't really film any of this here. It was kind of a hassle, and I was getting a little bit aggravated with it. Let me get the light up in here, but I rebuilt all of these, if I can set this down somehow. I rebuilt all of these tracks in here. Let me get the light so you can kind of see in here, so that it would, remember, it was all worn out in here, and I've rebuilt all of this on both sides. And now hopefully that'll be good. This track below here has some wear on it, but it's not that much, and I'm not going to worry about it. I've taken the shaft out temporarily on this side. Here's the new cross piece I put in here. I'm trying to get some light in here. The light is really bad here. And I've taken this shaft out right now temporarily. It goes between here and over here. Well, here and over here like this. And to get in here to work, but I got to put that back in, of course, before I try to feed the conveyor. But anyway, that's all been kind of done. In here, if you can see, and I didn't really film any of that to any degree because it was kind of hard to get in there to show anything. So I didn't really, and it was kind of a little aggravating to get in there with the grinder to grind all of that out. But I'll try to show some of this over here. I'm going to cut this, by the way, my whole area to work here is kind of restricted. I don't know if you can see here. I'm working between these racks here and the machine itself. It's just not a good place to, this conveyor thing, I don't know, it's probably about 20 feet long. It's a long conveyor. It's kind of hard to deal with it in here in the shop. You can see there's just not that much space, and they want to be able to continue to drive the forklift by and all that, so it's kind of hard to deal with. But anyway, I'm going to try to record video on some of this, but basically I just got to chop these off kind of carefully so that I don't take too much material. That's why I said I'm going to leave it long, and then grind it back, carefully grind it back. These tracks have been, of course, worn out, and then all this shavings and stuff have gotten into these cavities. So in order to weld it anyway, I'm gonna have to clean it out. So I might as well clean it out now. I'll get back with you as soon as I get most of that junk out. I can grind this off flush. That's not really too interesting to watch, so I'll get back with you after I get that ground back and get these two pieces fit the way I want. Then I got to move the welder up here and kind of tack them in place. Okay, here we are up to this point. I've rebuilt this track way here up to there. I kind of tack welded it in place so far. And over on the other side, same thing. Got these things fit, and I've got the let me stick this down here. On this side, I measured back originally to the original chip conveyor end. On this side, it was 47 and 7/16, which is what it is over there. And over here on this side, it was 47 and 3/8 to that brace thing back there, which is what we've got right there. So that's all, that all seems to be lined up pretty good. And I've got the, got everything kind of lined up here. I've just got to tack these things here. And then I've got this piece of sheet metal that was originally, this piece here, that was originally on the end of the conveyor. I've got to fit it in there. I haven't done that yet. I had to, I cut it kind of crooked, so I had to, I don't know if you can see that here. The piece that I machined is going slightly back further than the piece of sheet metal on both sides here, because I didn't cut this very straight, and I want it to match up to the old piece of sheet metal and have it match up to the end radiuses here. So that's it's all ready to go now. It fits pretty good. The angle is not quite the same here. This matched real well here on this side. Probably a difference in the sheet metal that I didn't make. Although I made them both the same. I didn't really take into account there might be a slight difference, but that isn't going to matter. That's not enough to worry about. And so I got to weld this, or actually I got to tack this in here, these two pieces, and then shape the piece of sheet metal to go in here. And we should be ready to, I think, before I weld it all solid, this didn't meet properly, and so I kind of cut it in here. I don't know if you can see that. And so I could bend it down and meet my piece. I've centered this track, and apparently it was just a hair off center, about a 1/16 of an inch or so in their piece. These are kind of like two U-shaped. This is a box section with a U on it, or a flange, I guess you might say. And then this is another U-shaped section that goes up to here in the original construction. And this was worn very thin right here. I don't know if you can see that. And maybe if a little light on there. Right in here it was really thin, so I kind of built it up with weld a little bit, at least back to about here, so it would match up. And when I weld this and grind it, I'll have some metal there, and I won't have a big step in it right there. And I did a little bit of that on this side too. So that's where we are now. Now I'll fit this piece of sheet metal that was original to the chip conveyor on the front here. I got to trim the edges off of it a little bit to make it fit. Well, first I'll tack these things on here so they're kind of tacked in the right place, and then I'll fit that sheet metal and I'll tack that all together. And I think at that point, because I've already rebuilt the end of this, like I showed you before down here, I think I'll run the chain in there with it just tacked together and kind of see if everything is going to work here before I weld it all up solid. If I've got to take something apart, I don't want to cut all the welds apart and everything. So that's where we are at the moment. I ran the chain. We put the chain in the conveyor up here and we ran it up into the turnaround and it went around fine. Everything looks pretty good. Seems like it's working the way it's supposed to. So now I've got to finish welding all this up here and all of this stuff. And when I left off on the last clip, I hadn't fit this piece of sheet metal that was the original sheet metal on the chip conveyor in here. So I've got that fit in here pretty good. I just have to weld this seam, and I need to weld these seams all the way around and probably grind them down some. And where I replaced I don't know if you can see it in here, where I replaced this trackway, I need to weld it kind of here and then grind that down. I've got just a bunch of tack welds right now just to test things, and I've got to weld these joints here. So got to do all this welding and some grinding, and then finish running the belt in here and get it tensioned back there, and remount the gear motor on it, and it should be done. We've finally got the coolant tank cleaned out here. Still waiting on the spindle for the machine. And the chip conveyor the fabrication I think is done finally. I've got all of this welded in here, ground down. This is a little bit rough, but I already ran the belt up in here, and I didn't realize that I had a problem down here. Let me get a flashlight and I'll show you what these tracks down in the corners here, or the turnaround, I guess you might call it, were messed up too, and I didn't realize it because there was like coolant sitting down in here, and I cleaned it out, and after I couldn't get the track, I had difficulty getting the track all the way through. I mean the belt, I should say, all the way through. It went all the way down and went around the end fine. Came back all the way within about 2 feet of making it, and it was this area down here in these radiuses was binding, and I couldn't get it all the way through. Also, I've decided to actually pull it through. Help me pull it through. I'm going to connect a cable onto this link and drag it through with the conveyor up to so it comes out with a piece of rope, and then when I get out to the end, I got this cable, kind of pigtail like cable thing, and I can maybe drive the forklift up there on the floor and hook the come along onto here. And this chain hoist come along thing right here, if you can see it here, and actually pull it the rest of the way, because I think what's happening too is you're pushing it because the conveyor, this here, there's a lot of junk in here for when I tried the chain one time. It's not cleaned off. I'm not going to actually totally clean the conveyor chain off because it's just too difficult to get it clean, and it's going to get dirty anyway immediately. But it went around this turnaround fine. And actually the conveyor, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the video, but the conveyor actually pushes the belt, but it also takes it up, as it pushes it, so it goes around this sprocket here. I don't know if you can see them up there, these sprockets. Maybe you can. And it also pulls it, but it only pulls it to take up the slack. and actually pushes it through. Because on this, I thought it did it the other way around, but on this deal here, it never really touches the inside of here. When it goes around, the rollers hit up against this area. When it goes around the deal, the end here, and it pushes into that radius with the rollers, and that's why with these pieces that I took out of there, that they're all worn out, as you can see on the outside of the radius, but on the inside, except, well, the links on this one, the links wore into the side here, but there's no real wear on the outside of these, the way they built these, and you can see it's just shoving the rollers into this, and it was made out of thin sheet metal. And up here too. And now, because I've got them made out of solid machine, steel, they're like billets, if you will, there is not going to be any wearing this out anymore up there, so that'll be good. And when I rebuilt the end down here, had the same trouble. It wore through the sheet metal in the radius there, and then there was nothing to support the rollers. And now I've got solid steel in there, and I bent like a 1/2-inch bar, and I plasma cut the radius piece to match up to the radius on the bottom. And so anyway, now I've got to rig up my piece of cable, and I got to attach a piece of rope to it and run it all the way around these braces here and back out, and then take up the slack a little bit at a time as I crank the conveyor. Well, first I got to clean this mess out here. It's a bunch of stuff, but like I said, I'm not really going to clean the belt off, because it's like I don't know, these shavings, I don't know if you can see this. The shavings are like, it's all stuck in the joints here. And it'd take me forever to pick all those out, and I don't think it really makes that much difference to have it there. It's going to get that way pretty much right off the bat anyway. Again, it doesn't seem to really affect the function of the thing, so I'm not going to do anything with that. I repaired the link, one of these links here. If you could see it, I repaired this one. I welded a washer on top of it because the head of that rivet was missing. And when I do the final link, the master link, if you will, I'll do the same, but there actually is a master link here. I don't know if you can see that with cotter keys, but whoever took this thing apart in the past, I guess they didn't use that. They just ground the head off of one of these, and that was part of the reason the whole thing malfunctioned to begin with, was that link came loose, and it shoved its way through the sheet metal up here, in particular through the end of you can see here, this is where it shoved that link right through the metal here. It came out because the track was gone, and it went out, and then that jammed the whole thing up, and that's what caused the thing not to work to begin with. So in theory, it might actually be better than it was when it was built now. So I got to get this all ready to pull the chain up in there, or push the chain up in there actually, and pull it the final way. And I think I got to kind of stretch all the play out of the links. All right, got the thing all back together with the belt in there. Chain belt, whatever you call it. Everything seems to be working good. If I do the wrench, it actually only moves about like this fast when it's moving. So it all Seems to be working now. What a hassle. Everything pretty much went as planned with the pulling the chain back in, pushing and pulling, and with the cable, like I said. And hopefully this thing will last another 10 or 15 years, or however. This machine was built in 2006, so the machine's almost 20 years old. I don't know if this conveyor has been apart before. I think it has, because judging from the pins, it's pretty easy to move with the wrench here, so I don't think the gear drive's going to have any trouble at all. Might even be better than it was when it was new, because I got those pieces on the end made out of solid bar stock. So anyway, now got to get it installed back in the chip pan. It's a little bit of a trick, because you got to kind of turn it around and lift it with a crane and put it on top of here. It's not too hard to do, but it's kind of a little unwieldy to handle. It's, I don't know, the thing's, what is it, about 20 feet long. It's a pretty big conveyor. And we've got to, turns out they're going to get a new spindle, because getting the spindle rebuilt, and then you have a core charge if you buy a new one, and just you get a core charge for the old one, because I guess they're going to rebuild it and then sell it as a refurbished one. And it only costs about $8,000 difference to get a brand new one or get a rebuilt one. So better just to get a brand new one. I don't know when that's going to be in. We'll see. And the machine should be back running after all this. Put new coolant in the tank. I think we're going to, the high pressure pump back here, have to change the filters and stuff in that. Everything should be almost as good as new by then. So that's pretty much the video on rebuilding the chip conveyor. I hope this was interesting. Kind of a hassle. It took me about a week in total to do it, because I had to go order some steel, I had to gather some stuff and materials and everything, but it's finally done. So anyway, thanks for watching.